Hello, beautiful moms. Welcome back to the Parenting Powerhouse podcast. In this episode, I'm going to dive deep into a heartfelt conversation that I recently had with a mom from the Parenting Powerhouse program. She opened up completely about her 18-year-old son. She's been in the program for a few months, and she mentioned how he's just spent years just apologizing for things that weren't even his fault, just saying, "I'm sorry," every time something came up, when he was in the middle of something, or if he felt like he did it wrong or somebody else did something wrong, he would always say, "I'm sorry." And, his fear of failure just felt so intense that it held him back from taking the risks or even trying new things. So the realization really hit her hard. Her well meaning efforts to protect him, as a mom always does, but it had in fact stifled, she realized, his ability to navigate the challenges pretty much on his own. So something changed as she was going through the program, and she just decided to step back a little bit. Just take a few steps back, just giving him a little space to maybe stumble because he was going to learn and grow. And that's how she really felt. And you know what? The result was good. It was extremely slow, but it was profound because she saw this transformation taking place in like very small steps, but it was happening. And she realized that it was actually happening faster because she was kind of stepping back and not trying to protect him and save him constantly and try to fix everything and try to coach him through everything. This episode, it really isn't just about her story, of course. That's a big part of it. At least that's what got me kind of thinking about it and started. But it's really a reminder to all of us about the power of stepping back a little bit and letting our kids build resilience in their own way. We are so used to helping our kids because from when they were really young, we knew if we didn't have a diagnosis yet, we knew that they needed some extra support in some areas. So we stepped in as parents are supposed to. We're supposed to. But as they get older, it's really kind of hard to pull back from that and know when and how much to push or how much to pull back. And as we go through this episode, maybe this will give you some ideas to think about. So just tune in a little bit. I'll talk about her experience a little bit, and let's see what resonates with your own journey because, again, it is your journey. And empowering yourself and your child is yours, and your confidence is yours as well as theirs. So, with this conversation, it was extremely powerful, extremely heart. It really like tugged at my heartstrings. And thinking about this mom is going through my program and she is putting herself out there. She's trying really hard. And I give her so much credit because it is hard to put yourself out there as a mom. We work so hard and we don't always get, or sometimes almost never, get that thank you or the praise, like, or just the validation that, you know what? I know you're trying hard. You're doing a great job. And we don't need that all the time, but once in a while, it's kind of nice to just say, hey, you know what? I am, to feel appreciated that or to be seen, is something special. So she did. She shared her story and how many years that were spent just being, afraid to mess up or make it worse for him, or how was this going to affect him if she didn't do the right thing or say the right thing. And so this habit that he built, saying sorry and apologizing for everything, didn't just come out of nowhere. It was really rooted in how much she had done for him over the years, which, like I said, that's okay. We're being parents, we're being moms. This is what we're supposed to do. There's no guidebook or rule book, right? We have to learn as we go. But she realized that, in that effort to protect him, she had been unknowingly really stifling his ability to take risks. He kind of withdrew. He maybe hesitated to try new things and just became really hyper aware of what could go wrong without having the confidence or skills to figure out just how to navigate challenges on his own. So, with this breakthrough, after years of shielding him from failure, you know, she made a conscious decision to step back, allowing him to make more decisions for himself, even if it meant, he's got to stumble a little along the way. And to do that as a parent is really tough. It really is. But slowly but surely, he really began to realize that mistakes weren't the end of the world. They were a part of his learning, of his life, of just life in general. And so he started showing up for himself in small but significant ways, like on his own time when he was ready for it. And I think that's really, really important here. So over time, just kind of as a reminder, our kids can grow in ways we might not always expect. And in the beginning, though, they're constantly taking in their surroundings. Think about it. They may not be fully self aware, but they're definitely aware of the differences between themselves and others. They notice what their siblings are achieving. They see how their peers have more friends, or maybe even realize that they're not hitting milestones at the same pace. They're doing this at teenagers and young adults. And of course, the frustration builds. And how does that feel for them? We don't want to make any assumptions, but it probably hurts their self esteem and confidence. And especially, this is hard when they don't yet have those executive skills to understand what's missing. Remember, they are socially, emotionally, developmentally behind their peers. They may look like a 15 or 16-year-old. They may, their academics may be on target. They may have a lot of on target things. Maybe they're getting their license, things of that nature. But socially and emotionally, still with relationships and communication and how they feel about themselves, they're taking a lot longer to grow. We just have to remember that. So over time, when they make these comparisons and don't really know what they're from, it can really take a toll on their self-confidence and self-esteem. And this leads to feelings of isolation. So they may actually isolate themselves because they're feeling isolated. Make sense? And when they don't have the tools yet to navigate these challenges, things can easily spiral into maybe social anxiety, maybe depression, maybe just becoming real withdrawn and not even wanting to try anything new. So here's something that's often overlooked. Um, and that's getting back to the neurodevelopmental delays. Our kids' brains just work differently. It's not just about their development lagging behind, but their brains are doing so much more at an early age. So research shows that neurodivergent kids, especially those on the autism spectrum, tend to have more gray matter early on, meaning their brains are already dealing with a huge amount of processing. And this overload can make it harder for them to pick up on things the way other kids do. That doesn't mean they're not capable. It just takes time. It's going to take extra time and patience from us, right? And here's the kicker. As our kids grow into their 20s and 30s, a lot of those connections start coming together. Now, I don't want to scare you, but it is the truth. And if we know it, then that's how we can parent. And it can shift our thinking and our understanding of our place and our role as a parent. It's going to be a bit longer, a little slower paced, and things will happen when they're supposed to happen. It's brain development. So by that time, 20s and 30s, you know, they may already be carrying like all of this anxiety from over the years, and they might be constantly comparing themselves to others. So they're not able to grow like we need them to. They will eventually, but if they're doing this on their own completely, it's probably going to take longer. But with our help and understanding, we can help them along the way. And this is pretty much exactly why it's so important to address these challenges as soon as you can, as soon as you start to understand it. And to help our kids understand their brains and help ourselves as parents support them through the process. It's really important. It's not about trying to make them, fit in or rush their development. That's not what we're trying to do here. It's about giving them the tools to feel confident in who they are, feel comfortable in their own skin, giving them whatever we know we can give them, basically, based on research, based on our own unique situation and our own parenting style. And this is what we do in the Powerhouse program. We really empower moms like you to understand these differences and support your children through every step of their journey. So, preventing these comparisons, and you might be asking, well, how the heck do I do this? I understand all this, I know this about my kid, and maybe all of this but you just don't know what to do with it, or maybe some of this information is new. Whatever it is, let me just give you a couple of strategies, and then we're going to dive into um, things that you want to think about for yourself as well. Because sure, we can try to do all these things, but if you're not comfortable with yourself and you're not understanding it and connecting to it and buying into it yourself, then you're still creating friction. So what we want to do here is just like try to minimize the friction, right? So a couple of things to do is maybe um, you know, teach that growth mindset. Help, your teenager, young adult understand that, everyone learns and grows at their own pace. Teach them the concept of like that growth mindset. Like, okay, you are who you are. You are different, than anybody else. Nobody's the same and everybody has their own style, learning timelines, everything. And trying to and you know your kid the best. So, as far as approaching them with this kind of conversation, definitely when things are very calm and, at the best time, maybe a car ride. Car rides are great because then you don't have to focus on each other and it's not so silent. There's a little bit of background noise. You're going to be focusing on the road or whatever. So, it's just usually a lot easier possibly in the car. Just another suggestion. But teaching that, everybody's brain is a little bit different with different things. And we just have to figure that out for ourselves. And this is one of the things about growing up and being a teenager is becoming self-aware and learning about himself or herself. Another thing that's really big that we can really help our kids is to try to avoid any kind of comparison like language. And, for us to be mindful of it is one thing, yet for them to be mindful of it is another. And that's going to be really, really hard. But if we try to avoid, you know, the language and the phrases like, you know, look at how your brother picks up his room. Your brother remembers to do this or that. Can't you do this or watch your brother? That kind of comparison language. It's not necessarily like we're not trying to hurt them, but it's still going to feed into that, "Why can't I be like everybody else?" or "What's wrong?" Because to be honest with you, they're not trying to do this. A lot of times, and most of the time, it is executive functioning. And, there's so many different executive skills that go into initiating a task, even remembering the task, even if it's written down, remembering where that is or when or how often to look at it. There's so much, and we're not going to go into that today, of course, but we just have to remember usually when they're doing these things, excuse me, it's not because they want to, it's just because their brain isn't really um, able to executively put these things together. Something else we can do is to try to focus on the individual strengths. Okay, so this is really tough because our kids are usually like, we say, "What do you want to do? What do you think you're good at? What do you want to try?" "I don't know. I don't know. I'm not good at anything. I don't know what I like. I don't know." We hear that all the time, right? So there are a few different things going on, of course, but one of the things is executively trying to make connections. Like, what does that really mean? And what's out there that isn't like very obvious linked to, strengths. So that's really hard for them to executively put together. So that's kind of up to us to try and help them like realize what their talents are, what they like, and maybe help find something that connects. And honestly, when we do it with them. So people, we are social creatures by nature. We have to have social interaction. It helps us grow, it helps other people grow. It the the feelings we get from having somebody just listening to us, validating, being around people, it's amazing. And I think that if we just kind of remember that even if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes of doing something like going out and trying to find things in the yard, or like um I don't know, anything, go try something new like frisbee golf, or just geocaching, looking in the woods, different things, and it could be just about anything, but just getting out for 10 or 15 minutes. That might be a time to just chat about what you're seeing and being present in the moment, and letting them kind of figure out what makes them feel good, or at least put them in that feel good type of position or mindset, and then talk about things. But at that time, when you were talking about strengths and everything, I think that encouraging that self reflection is something else we can do. So maybe just asking them open ended questions once in a while, like when they're in a really good mood, of course, not when they're stressed or anything else, but like just, you know, what did you do that made you feel good today? Like, did you do something that made you feel good or that you were proud of? Or, what is something you could do the next time to improve on that, whatever it was, depending on where the conversation is going. And, by focusing on these types of strategies, you can just help your kid build a stronger sense of self-worth and maybe reduce, a little bit of that negative impact that they're getting from the outside world and inside their head. So, I also want to kind of shift this focus to you because it's really important to acknowledge something many of us tend to overlook, and that is the stress, the fear, and the worry. They're not just negative emotions that need to be, pushed away. I know we try to do that. We either try to push it away or we put too much emphasis on it, and which how do we do that? Just by thinking about it, or like feeling stuck, that feeling of, oh my gosh, this day could not get any worse, and then it does get worse. And it's not going to get anywhere, and it does. Um, let's take a look at some of these like negative thoughts, like fear and worry and stresses, maybe more like important signals that are telling us to do something, um, or maybe not telling us to do something necessarily, but that something really needs our attention and we need to think about it. Because these emotions don't show up just randomly, right? They're going to arise because there's a part of us that feels maybe unsettled, out of balance, or in need of some kind of care. And when we begin to see these feelings as not as enemies, but more as maybe messengers, we open ourselves up to the possibility of more growth and healing in ourselves. You don't believe me? Well, think about it this way. I'm going to give you like a little bit of visual. I'm a real visual learner. And I want you to think about it this way: stress and anxiety are like maybe the flashing light on the dashboard of your car. Okay. So, that check engine light. So, when you ignore it or you try to like cover it up, it doesn't make that underlying issue disappear. I mean, it's disappeared from your visual system. So maybe it does kind of disappear from your mind, at least for a little while. Um, but if you let that go, if you keep pushing it back and trying to forget about it, it just makes it worse, right? And when you take just a moment to recognize that light and to get it checked out, you're giving yourself that opportunity to address the problem before it gets out of hand. So here's the more empowering part. Once you do that, there is a shift. And what once felt maybe like really overwhelming now just starts to feel manageable. And you can actually feel a sense of excitement knowing that, hey, you know what? I was just so worried about something. But you know what? This is a message for me to tune into. And I've identified something that needs my attention. So okay, this one thing that has me worried. First of all, bring my attention to it. Is it worry? Is it bugging me because you know what? It's not something I have to worry about because it hasn't happened. What are the chances of it happening? Maybe it could be too far in the future. And you know what? We can't predict the future, we create it. So if we take different actions or we take different steps, then we're going to create a different future from what we're worrying about, right? Make sense? So that's the way to look at it as often as possible. And this is a mindset shift. It's really something different. It's not easy, but the more we do it, the more we practice it, the more it becomes a habit and it works, believe me. So, thinking about this, really the beauty of this process that I just kind of shared with you is that it transforms how we experience these emotions. So instead of fear like really paralyzing us, it may become a motivator. Like find out where the heck is this fear coming from? Yeah, I know what I'm afraid of. I know what's, you know, what the problem is, but hey, you know what? Every problem has a solution, right? So don't cause, more of a problem when we can try to find a solution. So instead of letting the stress weigh us down, it really kind of becomes that signal that leads to some kind of action. And as you begin to face these feelings just head on, not only do they lose some of their power over you, but you also gain a deeper sense of empowerment. And every time you confront those difficult emotions and work through them, you come out on the other side stronger, more balanced, and ready to take on that next challenge when it happens again. Because you know you've done something in the right direction and you can do it again. This is really how we grow, right? And this is how we teach our kids to do the same. So, really, when it comes to addressing the stress and fear and worry, whatever it is, in a more productive and empowering way, we can take some steps to make a difference. And I want to share a few steps with you to take. Um, what we're going to do is I'm going to split this up into two different episodes because I have like several steps I can share with you, but it takes time to really buy in and own these steps. So let's just take a few steps to get started. And then the next episode, I'll finish up with the last steps after you've had time to practice for a couple of weeks. So the first thing you want to do, and this seems like easier said than done, honestly, even though it seems easy, just acknowledge the emotion. So, or that feeling, and put a word to it. So the first step really is to know what is it that you're feeling? What is the vocabulary word? What is the word connected to what you're actually feeling? Because a lot of times if we're already angry or already so worried or we're fearful, sometimes that is coming from another feeling. It might be embarrassment. It might be a comparison. We're feeling a little less than. It might be, our self esteem um, is hurt or challenged. So try to think about okay, whatever you're feeling is possibly coming from something else. Trying to acknowledge that and find that out, and allow yourself to recognize it. Like, hey, this is how I feel because there's a reason for it. It's not something that's happening to me, it's happening within me because I need to figure this out. So once you acknowledge that and you put a name to it, then start to really get curious and take a look at it and say, okay, instead of seeing the stress or worry really as a problem, it is a signal. And ask yourself, what is this emotion really trying to tell me? Maybe another question could be, what part of my life feels maybe out of balance or needs attention? This curiosity turns stress, like honestly, it turns stress into something you can work with rather than something you have to fight against. It actually makes you feel more powerful, like, this isn't happening to me. I'm going to try to figure this out and remove it myself, right? I'm going to move it over or remove it. I'm not going to just try to push it back. So these are just the first 3 steps, and I will share the next 4 in episode 21. Believe me, these are plenty to get you started and could take a few weeks to really own. So, first step, I'll just reiterate it real quick. Just acknowledge that feeling. What is it that you're feeling? You're feeling something negative, whatever it is, just acknowledge, hey, this is a crappy feeling. This is a feeling I don't like. And then put a name to it. Name it. Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it embarrassment? Is it, whatever it is? Put a name to it and then start to get curious about it. Don't just say, oh, I've got to, you know, go take a bath to calm myself down. Well, what are you doing? You're just like that check engine light. You're just kind of covering it up for a little bit. So you really need to think about this. Have some time on your own, by yourself, taking a walk. Movement is probably the best for your brain and body connection. But movement, and think about it. Clear your mind. Where's this coming from? And then you can say, hey, is this really rational? Is it rational thinking? Because I bet you it isn't, but it does need to be addressed to find out what it is. And I think that's really going to be very impactful and very empowering. So I think that if you start to do some of this stuff, then you'll be ready for the next episode in a couple of weeks. And I really would love for you to come back and um, send some comments, questions, about, how this relates to you. I'd be really interested in finding out a little bit more about your thoughts about this and maybe some breakthroughs or aha moments that you've had. And like always, if you're interested in finding out more, I provide parent coaching through the Parenting Powerhouse program for moms. Just visit parentingpowerhouse.com and see if there's something that I provide that resonates with you and can help you in this journey. So until next time, have a wonderful couple of weeks and stay positive when you can. When you can't stay positive, recognize that negativity and try to squash it. You can do it. You're strong and powerful. You're a great mom. I love you, and I'll see you next time.